The Curse of Pendle Hill, a true story from 1982. Pendle Hill in Lancashire, England, is known for its bleak beauty, but more so for its dark history. The hill and surrounding area are infamous for the 1612 Pendle Witch Trials, one of the most notorious witch hunts in English history. 12 people accused of witchcraft were tried and 10 of them were executed. Since then, locals claim the hill has never truly been free of its haunted past. In 1982, a local history teacher named David Proctor decided to take a small group of students on a field trip to Pendle Hill. David was fascinated by the history of the place and thought it would be an educational adventure, a chance for the students to learn about the trials firsthand. But what began as a routine school trip would turn into a nightmare they'd never forget. The day was cold and overcast as David and the students made their way up the narrow paths leading to the hill's summit. From the beginning, they felt an unease that was hard to shake, the kind of tension that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The hill was silent, and the usual chirping of birds or rustling of leaves was oddly absent. Despite this, they continued, driven by a mix of curiosity and youthful bravado. When they reached an area known as Malkin Tower, where some of the accused witches had once lived, one of the students, Sarah, felt suddenly unwell. She complained of dizziness, her face pale as she leaned against a nearby tree for support. David decided they should rest for a moment, but as they sat, strange things began to happen. The wind picked up suddenly, howling around them and carrying faint whispers that seemed to echo off the hillside. At first they thought it was just the wind, but the whispers grew louder, forming distinct words. Leave. Leave. David brushed it off as his imagination, not wanting to frighten the students, but he could see in their faces that they heard it too. Moments later, Sarah let out a terrified scream, pointing to the edge of the clearing. David and the others looked and froze. Standing just beyond the tree line was a figure, a woman dressed in tattered dark clothing, her face obscured by a shadowy hood. She was staring directly at them, motionless. Her figure was faint, almost transparent, yet undeniably there. Before David could react, the woman lifted her hand as if pointing at them. Her mouth opened, and though they were far too far to hear her, they saw her lips form the words, "You're not welcome." Panicked, David told the students to gather their things and they began to descend the hill as quickly as they could, but the sense of dread only grew stronger, and as they hurried down the path they heard footsteps behind them, heavy, dragging footsteps that grew louder with each step. They didn't dare look back. By the time they reached the base of the hill, Sarah collapsed, her breathing shallow, her skin ice cold. They rushed her to a nearby hospital where she remained unresponsive for hours, mumbling incoherently in a voice that wasn't of her own. When she finally regained consciousness, she couldn't remember what had happened on the hill, but claimed she'd have had terrible nightmares of being trapped, of something holding her down, whispering curses into her ears. After the incident, David never returned to Pendle Hill. He later learned that similar sightings had been reported over the years, shadowy figures, ghostly voices, and an overwhelming feeling of dread, especially near Malkin Tower. Locals believe that the spirits of Pendle witches still haunt the hill, vengeful and unwilling to let trespassers come too close. To this day, Pendle Hill is a place of mystery and fear. Hikers and locals report strange occurrences, especially at dusk, when the fog rolls in thick and heavy, and many believe that those who ignore the warnings, who venture too far or stay too long, may just encounter the spirits of the Pendle witches, trapped, angry, and forever guarding their cursed ground.